Good evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today. This is your primetime destination. News, newsmakers, talking points. The big talking point, Prime Minister Narendra Modi lavishing praise on President Trump. Are Trump and Modi on the same page? Are they made for each other? Can the Modi government really trust Donald Trump? The Modi-Trump equation is our top focus. But first, the story that we are breaking right at the very top. US President Donald Trump is now to speak to Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday. That's tomorrow. The conversation over the phone as of now has been scheduled for some time on Tuesday. It is the first direct talks between the two principals, Donald Trump, President of the United States, and Vladimir Putin of Russia. They are expected to talk on a potential truce proposal that both sides hope could end the war in Ukraine, at least for now. Ukraine has already agreed to a 30-day ceasefire proposal. Russia, on the other hand, has been unwilling so far to commit to any ceasefire proposal. Trump, though, has expressed confidence that the war can be ended as soon as possible. That's the big story at the moment, and the world is watching. Can there be an end to the Ukraine-Russia war? Diplomatic Affairs Editor Geeta Mohan is at the Raisina dialogue that's taking place in the national capital. Geeta, is there any possibility that those watching see an early breakthrough at all? Or is Putin, according to them, buying time?
Well, it is certainly not buying time, because this was something that was to happen. A conversation between President Trump and President Putin was something that President Trump had spoken of, that he would be talking to Putin, and therefore the conversation is going to take place. Dmitry Peskov, spokesperson at the presidential office in Kremlin, in Russia, said that they are looking at all current agendas. The agenda could include all the current issues. So he's not been specific on what this entails, but like you rightly said, Rajdeep, it certainly would focus on bringing about a truce deal. What would that truce deal entail? Will that mean that they are looking at the areas that are occupied by Russia, going to Russia, or is there going to be a compromise where certain areas will have to be returned or given back to Ukraine? These are nitty-gritties that will be spelled out, but certainly for America, what is important over here is what it gets in return. And what it wants is peace, so that there can be a proper minerals deal with Ukraine, and in future maybe in territories that will be occupied by Russia as well.
You're at the Raisina dialogue. What's the mood out there? There are several leaders from Intel chiefs and other leaders, including from the Five Eyes. Is there a sense that there could be an early ceasefire, or is there a belief that this is only the first step?
Well, it is a first step, but I've been speaking to a lot of people over here. Like you said, a lot of representation from the Five Eyes as well, including New Zealand. And most of them, what they really want is peace right now. A lot of European countries represented over here. I spoke with the Deputy Prime Minister of Slovenia, speaking to others as well. Poland representing itself over here. All of them, the war fatigue, Rajdeep, has indeed set in. Everybody over here wants peace. They understand the vulnerability of Europe right now, with Trump's position having changed. And therefore, what they're looking at is, at the earliest, if there can be a ceasefire, a truce, whatever the understanding between Ukraine and Russia, certainly would be acceptable. I spoke with Kiran Bilimoria as well. He is a member of parliament from the UK. Again, war fatigue setting in, and everybody over here certainly seeking peace. So any conversation that is moving in the right direction to have Putin and Zelensky come to the negotiating table or to a truce is acceptable to everyone for now.
Okay, let me leave it there, Geeta. We'll, of course, track that closely in the next 24 hours, what happens in that crucial meeting between the Russian president and the US president. Now, there's been a day of hectic diplomacy in Delhi as well. The Raisina dialogue, organized by the Ministry of External Affairs, taking center stage. Prime Minister Narendra Modi meeting the New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon today. India raising the issue of Sikh separatists in New Zealand misusing freedom of speech with the government. India and New Zealand signing an MOU on defense, agreeing to discuss a trade deal. The Prime Minister also meeting the US National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard, the first such senior official of the Trump administration to visit India in the last couple of months. The Prime Minister gifted her Ganga Jal from the Kumbh Mela. In an interview to ANI, Gabbard said the Prime Minister and President Trump share a similar outlook on handling terror. Listen in.
You know, President Trump, through his first administration in the presidency, and it continues now, has been very clear about his commitment to defeating this threat of Islamist terrorism that has unfortunately plagued us, has and continues to pose a direct threat to the American people. But we see how it's been impacting people here in India, in Bangladesh, currently ongoing in Syria, Israel, and different countries in the Middle East. So this is a threat that I know Prime Minister Modi also takes seriously, and one where the leaders of our two countries will work together to try to identify and defeat that threat.
Now, of course, the Trump-Modi equation is one that is very intriguing. Are they two leaders who have more in common and therefore get along? Are they made for each other? Are they a mutual admiration society? Well, the US President Donald Trump today shared on his social media channel, Truth Social, the interview given by the Prime Minister to a US podcaster, Lex Friedman, over the weekend. Interestingly, the Prime Minister also joined Trump's social media site, Truth Social, and thanked the US President. In the interaction with Friedman, the Prime Minister had spoken about Trump in glowing terms. Here are excerpts from that interview that suggest that the Prime Minister is making every effort to reach out to Donald Trump.
मैं घटना का वर्णन करना चाहूंगा। शायद आप उससे जज कर सकते हैं कि कौन सी बातों की तरफ मैं कह रहा हूं। अब जैसे हमारा ह्यूस्टन में कार्यक्रम था, हाउडी मोदी, और मैं और राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप दोनों, और पूरा स्टेडियम खचाखच भरा हुआ था, तो इंडियन डायस्पोरा के लोग इकट्ठे आए थे। तो हम लोग दोनों स्पीच किए, वो नीचे बैठ करके मुझे सुन रहे थे। अब ये उनका बड़प्पन है जी। अमेरिका के राष्ट्रपति स्टेडियम में नीचे बैठ करके सुन रहे हो और मैं मंच पर से भाषण कर रहा हूं, ये उनका बड़प्पन है। मैं भाषण करके नीचे गया, और हम तो जानते हैं कि अमेरिका की सिक्योरिटी की कितनी बड़ी वो रहता है, कितने प्रकार की स्क्रूटिनी होती है। मैं जाकर के वो रहे इसके लिए धन्यवाद करने गया, फिर मैंने उनको ऐसे ही कहा, अगर मैंने कहा आपको इतराज ना हो तो आइए हम जरा एक पूरे स्टेडियम का चक्कर काट के आते हैं, इतने लोग हैं तो हाथ ऊपर करके नमस्ते करके आ जाते हैं। अब ये अमेरिका की लाइफ में ये इम्पॉसिबल है कि हजारों की भीड़ में अमेरिकन राष्ट्रपति चल पड़े, एक पल का भी विलंब किए बिना तो मेरे साथ चल पड़े भीड़ में। अमेरिका की जो सुरक्षा तंत्र था पूरा एकदम से वो हो गया था, डिस्टर्ब हो गया था। मेरे लिए टच कर गया कि इस व्यक्ति में हिम्मत है, ये डिसीजन खुद लेते हैं। और दूसरा, मोदी पर उनको भरोसा है कि मोदी ले जा रहा है तो चलिए चलते हैं। तो ये आपसी विश्वास का भाव, ये इतना हमारा मजबूती मैंने उसी दिन देखा। और मैंने राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप को उस दिन जिस रूप में महसूस किया कि सिक्योरिटी वालों को पूछे बिना मेरे साथ चल देना हजारों लोगों के बीच में, अब उसका वीडियो देखोगे तो आपको आश्चर्य होगा। और जब उन पर गोली चली अब इस चुनाव कैंपेन में, तो मुझे राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप एक ही नजर आए। उस स्टेडियम में मेरा हाथ पकड़ करके चलने वाले ट्रंप, और गोली लगने के बाद भी अमेरिका के लिए जीना, अमेरिका के लिए ही जिंदगी, ये जो उनका रिफ्लेक्शन था, क्योंकि मैं नेशन फर्स्ट वाला हूं, वे अमेरिका फर्स्ट वाले हैं, मैं भारत फर्स्ट वाला हूं, तो हमारी जोड़ी बराबर जम जाती है।
So America first meets nation first. Now, is this admiration mutual? Well, it appears to be. Because remember, during Prime Minister Modi's recent visit to the US, President Trump described Prime Minister Modi as a tough and master negotiator. Listen in to what Trump had said about Mr. Modi then.
Mr. President, you spoke about Prime Minister Modi as a tough negotiator. Who was a tougher negotiator today and who has a better negotiating tactic when it comes to tariffs?
Oh, he's a much tougher negotiator than me, and he's a much better negotiator than me. There's not even a contest. Okay?
So let's raise some of the big questions. Are Trump and Modi on the same page? Will this Trump-Modi bonhomie really help Indo-US ties? Can Prime Minister Modi and the Modi government really trust Donald Trump? Are Trump and Modi made for each other? There's some of the questions that I'm going to raise tonight. I'm joined by Meera Shankar, former envoy to the United States, K.C. Singh, former Secretary MEA, and Richard Russo, Senior Advisor, CSIS in Washington. Appreciate all of you joining us on that. I want to get each of you to explain to me how you see it. And I want to go first to Washington, to you, Richard Russo. How do you see, from a Washington lens, the manner in which Prime Minister Modi is reaching out to Trump at every available opportunity? He's even now joined and followed Trump's social media site, Truth Social. Is this the Prime Minister, in a way, seeing Donald Trump as an ally, as a friend, as a comrade?
Well, we saw last time that President Trump was in office that the two leaders were able to get some pretty significant things done together. I think from India's vantage point, they look at the United States as an important security partner, as the most important economic partner. And when you've got a president that lashes out against friends and allies, sometimes difficult to kind of understand what might happen the next day, I think India's been working extra hard to try to make sure that this relationship, more than most other relationships with the United States, has remained relatively stable. You've got a Quad meeting happening just this week in New Delhi. Of course, a range of cabinet officials, the head of state meeting. So I think India's navigated turbulent waters in Washington far better than most other countries have so far, because both countries have a lot on the table they want to continue to accomplish.
But is the secret to Donald Trump to flatter him? The Prime Minister in his podcast was full of admiration for Mr. Trump, called him a man of courage. Is that part of the way to reach out to Trump's mind or heart, is to constantly flatter him and speak about him in admiring and glowing terms?
It never hurts. But at the same time, we saw in India's budget where they moved on customs duties in areas the United States cared about, where there's been talks about India increasing more U.S.-made defense equipment as something that might be tangible this year and in the coming 4 years. So flattery certainly is on the mix, but you've got real concrete things that both sides have put on the table that would hopefully break out new directions and unlock commercial opportunities and security opportunities. So it's a mix, flattery and concrete outcomes. So we'll see how many concrete outcomes they can develop as the year comes up.
I'll come to those concrete outcomes in a moment, but Meera Shankar, let me for a moment focus on what is being called the chemistry between the two leaders. We saw the Prime Minister give a podcast, 3-hour podcast interview to someone who's seen to be part of the Elon Musk right-wing ecosystem, someone who's been who's constantly also praising Donald Trump. That's Mr. Friedman. Do you get a sense that this is personal chemistry works in diplomacy, that the Prime Minister constantly speaking about Mr. Trump in such glowing terms will actually work?
Well, to some extent, it does help. It can't harm if the personal relationship is good. And there is an ideological affinity between the two, which was visible during Trump's first term. Now, during Trump's second term, he's come with a far more determined agenda on trade and tariffs and, getting other countries to contribute their share and so on, an America First platform. So mere personal goodwill is not going to cut it. It'll have to be a mix of how you actually get concrete outcomes, as the previous speaker said. But from India's point of view, those concrete outcomes should not be on the basis of accepting the US demands in toto. you have to have a mixture of firmness and flexibility, because the US is an important partner. They're an important strategic partner. They're our largest economic market. Our IT companies have grown on the strength of linkage to the US market. So there's a lot at stake for India. But at the same time, there are issues which can be troublesome for India, like opening up agriculture wholesale when you have subsistence farmers who have barely 2.5-acre farms. They can't compete with the big, commercial giants in the US. So I think that India has to also do its homework, have its own demands on the table, also have a sense of where it's going to dig its heels in and where it can show flexibility. How is it that the two countries can negotiate in a way which is mutually beneficial and not at the cost of one country?
Let me take that to you, KC Singh, because look, the Prime Minister was pretty honest enough to say in that interview, look, I talk India first, Donald Trump talks America first. Do you think the twain can meet, given the manner in which Trump in the last few weeks has targeted the world, including India, on high tariffs, specifically on more than one occasion mentioned India as having extremely restrictive tariffs? Do you believe, therefore, that America first and a nation first can actually merge, or is this just atmospherics at the moment?
Look, those are slogans. And when it comes to substance, I think it's a question of, yes, marrying or seeing where you can compromise and where you can't compromise. I think so far, government of India has handled Trump well. We've seen the multiple ways global leaders have handled him. There is Zelensky, where he openly contradicted them in the Oval Room and got kicked out of White House. There is the French president who largely agreed with him, but basically used flattery and a combination of this thing, but also correcting facts as he went along. And India has tried to avoid any confrontation with him. And that's why even when those so-called illegal Indians came in chains back to India on American military planes, when there was the example of Colombia sending their own planes and refusing American military planes to bring their citizens back, India was quiet. We've not protested. We didn't say anything. So which means we decided that let's not, to the extent possible, we can make any issue which immediately provokes Trump, and then he gets deviated from the basic path. So I think their thing is they realize that the thing that he continuously raises is tariffs, though he misstates the facts on that. So you don't contradict him, you engage his team, and you see how you can work out a modus vivendi, an arrangement. For instance, he says reduce the duties on cars. You can do it. It doesn't mean automatically American cars would sell here. You can't just reduce the duty on Tesla coming in. You'll have to then look at your own electric vehicle production in the country. So I think devil lies in the detail. And when they sit down and do it, I think buying time is not a bad idea, because sooner or later Trump will start getting entrenched in the larger geopolitical mess that he's creating, with Europe trying to create self-sufficiency, self-dependence, and making sure that they reduce their dependence on America militarily or otherwise. And that's why we're also doing a free trade agreement has been speeded up with Europe too. So you have to bat differently. It's multiple things happening at the same time. But I think India, so far, the attempt is don't provoke him, even if he does something, even if he gives you a slight slap.
The question is don't provoke him. There are those, of course, Richard Russo, who see from an Indian perspective at times a certain uncertainty in what lies ahead in dealing with Donald Trump. There's also the Musk factor. Elon Musk has already virtually tied up Starlink with the Ambanis and with the Mittals. So you've got a belief that maybe India is extending an olive branch, not just to Donald Trump, but to Elon Musk as well. Again, it comes back to you. Do you think that with Donald Trump that personal chemistry works? Or is he someone so unpredictable and disruptive that whatever you do, you don't know what tomorrow brings?
Unpredictable in terms of the day-to-day things that the administration might announce, but there is some level of predictability. You know, we know this wave that basically brought him to office. American communities that had felt left behind because of globalization, that fear, that unfettered immigration, illegal immigration, largely from southern parts of the Americas as well as from Canada, have been part of the damaging factors. That you've got rampant drug abuse in the United States. And again, a lot of that comes in across our borders, and some of that originates in China. So you know some of the factors that the president views that he took on that got him elected to office. And I would say if you keep your eye on those factors, and India's done that pretty effectively by talking about encouraging Indian companies to invest in the United States, about accommodating industrial tariffs in some of the sectors like autos and motorcycles, which they've been talking about, that hit on the communities that have seen basically the evacuation of a lot of manufacturing. So, you know, again, the day-to-day stuff, you're right. We don't know. It's just a tweet every single morning that we got to follow here in Washington to know where the president's head's at and the specific policy initiatives. But we also know the big drivers. And as long as you keep your eyes on those and aim to try to appease the president in small ways that also, hopefully in some of those ways, work well for India, at least in the short term, if not the long term, that's the good way to stay on the right side and try to continue to achieve gains in this partnership.
You know, I'm going to play some images, Meera Shankar, of, for example, a young Indian student who found suddenly that she was self-deported. And that is, you know, some liberal activists feel that this is classic Trump, a Trump police state that has been created, which is driving away people who are seen, he claims, to be pro-Hamas. He even... there are suggestions that as many as 40 countries are on a watch list when it comes to visas. Do you believe India should be taking these cases up, whether it is the handcuffing of those who were brought back, illegal immigrants, whether it's the case of the young Indian student from Columbia University who found herself suddenly self-deporting? Should India be taking up those cases, or simply at the moment focusing on Mr. Trump as a transactional president and just do business with him, see specific outcomes without getting caught in any battles that may provoke him?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would feel that really you have to learn how to handle Mr. Trump, because he's someone who has such a personalized way of policy making that the establishment in Washington is now entirely dependent on the priorities and decisions that Trump sets, rather than feeding from the bottom up. It's a top-down system. So within that top-down system, it's very important that you learn how to handle Trump. And many of the other issues are not really India-specific, just as trade tariffs are not India-specific. It's part of his key priorities in terms of his support base in America and how he thinks he can steer America again to greatness. This is his vision, that this is what he thinks it's going to take to make America great again. Now, it may or may not work, and many people also question whether this kind of chaos which the American system is actually going through right now, because of the sackings of people, then the courts overruling many of those decisions, and nobody knowing where the final decision rests, because it may go all the way to the Supreme Court. So it introduces an element of uncertainty, not only for the US's partners, but also within US society itself. And what the outcome of all this is going to be in the at the end of President Trump's term, we don't really know. You know, it's his vision of how he thinks he can steer America back to greatness, you know, impose tariffs, get back manufacturing, reduce immigration, impose tariffs on partners who he thinks have been freeloading, which may not be the case, but these are his views.
So you're saying, for example, when an Indian student gets self-deported, we don't raise our voice. When immigrants are seen with Indian immigrants, illegal immigrants come back home, chained, handcuffed, we don't raise our voice. You're saying,
I think,
let's not.
let me
What
say,
happens then to
let
the
me
sort of moral standing that India was seen to have in diplomacy? Is that to be forgotten because you're dealing with a transactional president?
Rajdeep, let me qualify that. If these issues are raised, they should be raised in private, in government dialogue, and not with a megaphone. With this government, this kind of public diplomacy, I think, would be counterproductive.
Okay, that's a very important point you're saying. You're saying
I'm sure
public
that our concerns on the illegal immigrants being sent in chains have been conveyed to the government of the US. But on the Palestinian student, on the student who was supporting Palestine, the Indian student, I would just draw your attention to the fact that India's own policies with regard to demonstrations, pro-Palestine demonstrations here, have been pretty similar. Not deportations, but many people have actually paid a price.
Okay. I just want to understand from you, Casey Singh, somewhere, are Trump and Modi made for each other? Both populist strongmen, both with this reaching out to their respective constituencies as nationalists taking on the previous liberal elites, and therefore their ideological similarities, do they bring them together? Or are they two people who are so strong-willed that sooner or later there could be a clash? What's more likely?
Look, there is a convergence of the far-right leaders. Don't forget that Trump had invited the Hungarian president, the Chilean president, people who were far-right, 2 or 3 leaders he had invited. And he's been attacking the so-called post-World War II liberal order, which had been created, which created a set of rules for global international relations and how countries deal with each other. Now, very clearly, that is being replaced internationally and domestically by a hegemonic order. And that's why he keeps calling Canada the 51st state. He wants Greenland. He wants Panama. So India, up to a point, as Ambassador Shankar said, for instance, on Palestine, even this far-right government doesn't shed many tears over that. So it doesn't trouble them too much. But what happens is that these things have a tendency to follow their own logic. For instance, ICE now, the immigration people are beginning to go after even green card holders, those who have been spending time outside the country but are not maintaining a permanent residence. And there will be a large number of Indians related to the diaspora, older people who come here in the winter, then go back. They've been attacking them. They go there and literally telling them, we will arrest you unless you surrender your green card. Now, once this madness sets afoot and the xenophobia is there, you'll see that you can't have a dividing line, say, okay, it's just a student who protested because there was an pro-Palestine protest. This will have its own logic. So at some stage, India cannot keep quiet if this does not end. Similarly, in the hegemonic order, will you just sit out while Europeans come together? Europeans say that, look, we have to create a new kind of NATO, a new defensive system. Or will you start joining that or being more sympathetic? Look, in the same interview that Prime Minister has given, he's been extra soft on China. There is a reason for that. And the Chinese are probably also realized that they are the main target. They are in list number 1. And therefore, the Chinese realize that they would like to certainly reach out to India and try normalizing relations again, because you can't take on America, you can't take on India, you can't take on the whole world. So there is a realignment taking place all over the world. So far, what India has done is you play it safe, you reopen some of the old relationships you had, so that you have multiple choices if Trump's rearrangement of the world goes haywire.
Yeah, no, I take your point. I just want a final word, therefore, pegged to that, Richard Russo, that you've got the Chinese equation. We saw the Prime Minister speaking about the historical ties between India and China in that same interview. Is Trump going to balance India and China? Do you see the Donald Trump regime dealing with India and China in both similar transactional manners? Which is the priority for him?
I don't think China is going to be as transactional. You may see some transactions. Certainly, if I'm sitting in Beijing, again, thinking back to some of the drivers that brought President Trump to office, for China to announce a major investment program in some of those communities, there's steps I think China can take that might momentarily appease the president. But at the same time, as we saw last time President Trump was in office, and this time, when you look at a lot of his senior appointees that are very hawkish on China, that's a big part of the reason that we double down the relationship with India. With India, certainly there's transactions, but the relationship is strategic and positive in a lot of ways. You may have some trade squabbles, but I'm sure you'll see big steps in the right direction in terms of security partnership. And with China, it was the first meeting President Trump hosted the day after the inauguration, was a Quad Minister Summit, another Quad meeting happening this week itself. Engagement with India, engagement with Japan, Australia. This is all trying to make sure that we've got a lot of friendships across Asia, just in case China's belligerent approach, as we've seen to the neighborhood, continues. So you'll see transactions with India and transactions with China, but I think the deeper drivers build the partnership with India and continue to build positioning with friendships around China, just in case things go haywire. These, I think, are core drivers that we're going to see all throughout the next 4 years.
Okay, let's leave it there. I think we've got a sense of where this Trump-Modi relationship could be heading. There's always uncertainty, uncharted waters when you're dealing with Donald Trump. But clearly, Prime Minister Modi seems to have found a way of reaching out to the US president. How successful he will be in that endeavor will depend on the actual outcomes, not just on the atmospherics and the chemistry. Appreciate my guests joining us here on our top talking point. I want to turn from there to the other story that we are getting at this moment. Top government sources now telling India today that the Modi government will present the contentious Waqf amendment bill in this very session of Parliament. The sources say that the Waqf bill will come likely after Eid, which is the end of this month. So that's the story that's coming in at this moment, that the Waqf amendment bill is likely to come and be presented in Parliament at just after Eid, which is the end of March. Okay, more news now coming in at this moment that the Aurangzeb issue has escalated in Maharashtra to violence. Violent clashes have just taken place in Nagpur over the Aurangzeb issue. Two groups have clashed over a raise Aurangzeb tomb demand that has been made by Hindu right-wing groups like the Bajrang Dal. Vehicles have been torched and police have been injured in the clashes. So Maharashtra seeing unfortunate scenes there as a result of the Raise Aurangzeb campaign that Hindu right-wing groups launched across the state today. Omkar Vagbale now joins me from Sambhaji Nagar, that is of course formerly Aurangabad, and that is where close by Aurangzeb's tomb is located. Omkar, the day seemed to pass off peacefully, but now we are seeing these scenes of vehicles torched, police injured. Tell us exactly who is being seen to be held responsible and what was the police doing?
Well, I think these are clear repercussions of what's happening in Maharashtra politics, especially ministers and the politicians from the government, that they were continuously fueling a controversy of Aurangzeb, and now reflection is clearly seen on the screen. Just 15-20 minutes ago, two groups confronted and it went towards the broil. So primary report says that almost 4 to 6 police officers are injured, though the condition is under control, but extra forces have been deployed. Already SP and Nagpur CP are coordinating with the district collector. Some of them are in hospital. But the main issue is how the controversy erupted and who fueled the controversy. Unfortunately, rather than maintaining the social harmony, Maharashtra politicians are very much busy in just running their propaganda and the perception who will be the pure, who will be the proudest Hindu. And that is how the unfortunate incident took place in the Mahal area of Nagpur.
Let me just play out what the police have just said on that incident. Listen in.
किसी मिसकम्युनिकेशन के कारण ये घटना घटी है। अभी सिचुएशन कंट्रोल में है, हमने अपना फोर्स पूरा यहाँ पे स्ट्रांग है। सबसे हम अपील करते हैं कि कोई बाहर ना निकलिए और पत्थरबाजी ना करे। काफ़ी पत्थरबाजी वहाँ से हो रही है, तो हमने उनको आगे शो ऑफ फोर्स किया था, उन पे टीयर गैस का भी वापर किया था। अभी सिचुएशन कंट्रोल में। कई छोटी छोटी कोई गाड़ी को आग लगाई है, तो उसको हमने फायर ब्रिगेड बुला के उसको भी हमने प्रोटेक्टिव सपोर्ट फोर्स देके उसको भी बुझाया है। थोड़े बहुत इंजोर हुए हैं, कुछ आगे पीछे, मेरा भी थोड़ा सा पैर इंजोर हुआ है पत्थरबाजी में, तो वो चल रहा है। बट हम लोग का भी सबसे विनती है, अपील है कि प्लीज शांति बनाए रखिए।
Well, all of this, of course, taking place against the backdrop of the VHP and Bajrang Dal holding protests across Maharashtra today, demanding the removal of Aurangzeb's tomb in Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar. Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis stopped short of saying that the tomb would be removed, saying it was under the ASI's jurisdiction, but he declared he will not allow any glorification of the Mughal ruler. This, of course, has led to a battle between the Fadnavis group as well as the Congress, which accuses the Chief Minister of playing dangerous communal politics.
आज यातनं एक संदेश निश्चितपणे जातो आहे की या देशामध्ये महिमा मंडन होईल तर ते छत्रपती शिवरायांच्या मंदिराचं होईल. महाराष्ट्रामध्ये औरंगजेबाच्या कबरीचं महिमा मंडन होऊ देणार नाही, त्याचं उदात्तीकरण होऊ देणार नाही. त्याचं उदात्तीकरण करण्याचा कोणी प्रयत्न केला तर तो प्रयत्न त्याच ठिकाणी चिरडून टाकण्याचं काम या आम्ही केल्याशिवाय राहणार नाही.
औरंगजेब का शासन जितना क्रूर था, उतना ही क्रूर आज महाराष्ट्र सरकार का कारोबार उसी तरीके से क्रूर व्यवस्था से क्रूर पद्धति से चल रहा है. और महाराष्ट्र की जो अस्मिता है वो देवेंद्र फडणवीस ही है क्या? यहाँ का किसान अस्मिता नहीं है, यहाँ की महिला अस्मिता नहीं. साक्षात हमारी आन बान शान छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज के बारे में गलत बोलने के बाद भी अस्मिता को ठेस नहीं पहुंचती. व्यक्ति की, सरपंच की बेदर्दी के साथ खून उनका हो रहा है.
Battle over Aurangzeb. I call it a weapon of mass distraction, WMD. If only our politicians would focus on some of the real issues that affect the people of Maharashtra and indeed this country, we could have a little less of religious polarization and we could have a little bit more of what states like Maharashtra need. For example, focus on the core issues like farmers' suicide, which remain a problem in several parts of rural Maharashtra. Let's turn from Maharashtra to the state of Telangana, where Chief Minister Revant Reddy has admitted once again to a cash crunch in his state and now says he can't pay salaries to government employees. The BJP has slammed Revant Reddy and the Congress party, claiming that this is a fallout of the so-called khatta-khat politics or freebie politics of Rahul Gandhi. Take a look.
The Telangana government is facing a severe cash crunch. Chief Minister Revant Reddy recently admitted the situation so grave. His government is unable to pay salaries to employees.
అందుకే దయచేసి మా ప్రభుత్వ ఉద్యోగులకి ప్రభుత్వం మీది అన్ని లెక్కలు మీ ముందల్నే పెడతా. ఏది ఎట్లా పంచుదామో చెప్పండి, ఏది ఆపుదాం, ఏది పంచుదాం. మీ లెజిటిమేట్ రైట్ డిఏలు కావచ్చు, కరువు భత్యం కావచ్చు, ఇవన్నీ మీ లెజిటిమేట్ రైటే. కానీ నిజమైన జీతభత్యాలు మొదటి తారీఖు నాడు ఇవ్వడానికే 7 lakh crores.
Chief Minister had made a similar claim at the India Today conclave, where he hinted at financial crisis and called for a national debate on freebies.
The lagging, what in the previous government, they have made a debt of around 7 lakh crores and they have pushed that debt to our government. He is working on it and he is paying the salaries on 1st of every month. At the same time, he wants to clear the DS also, what is pending.
The opposition has accused the Telangana Chief Minister of wasting public money.
When you are admitting and confessing that there is a deficit of 71,000 crores, what is the need to commit 200 plus crores or maybe even more to a contest like Miss World? When you're not able to deliver salaries on time, when you're not able to give DAs, when you're not able to commit money towards the 6 guarantees that you promised about a year and a half ago.
The BJP has blamed Rahul Gandhi. The party spokesperson claimed the leader of opposition is busy holidaying in Vietnam, while all his states are facing a financial crunch. Welfare schemes are also draining other states like Himachal Pradesh, Karnataka and Maharashtra, sparking a debate on the viability of freebies. With Abdul Bashir, Bureau Report, India Today.
And I'd asked Revant Reddy this precise question at the India Today conclave a week ago. How was he going to pay for all the various guarantees that his government had given, which many of the critics believe are little more than cash handouts? Take a look at what he said then.
Mr. Reddy, you spoke about delimitation, where you said all South parties are together. But there is something that all South parties are not together, and that is the issue of the education policy, the three-language policy. Now,
Preeti ji, ab misquote mat karo. South parties are not intact. Entire South population is intact. BJP is not with us.
The charge.
Political party is not with us.
Chandrababu Naidu has made a charge, Mr. Reddy, and he's saying the likes of you and the likes of Mr. Stalin are denying a sizable population in their state the right to learn, if they want, an optional right to learn a link language like Hindi, which will connect the North-South divide.
कोई भाषा सीखने के लिए कोई जबरदस्ती करने का जरूरी नहीं है कॉलेज में आपको ऑप्शनल
You are with the news today. Let's turn to tonight's exclusive ground report. The attacks on Indian fishermen by Sri Lankan Navy have become a major issue in Tamil Nadu in recent times. While continuously reporting on the fishermen's plight, India Today's Pramod Madhav traveled to the island of Katchatheevu, which is one of the main trouble spots between India and Sri Lanka. Take a look at tonight's special ground report on an area that is the heart of this conflict and where fishermen find themselves targeted.
Katchatheevu Island, a 285-acre stretch nearly 30 kilometers from Rameshwaram, is special for fishermen from Tamil Nadu. The island was disputed till 1974, the year when India accepted Katchatheevu as Sri Lankan territory. The fishermen from Tamil Nadu are allowed entry into Katchatheevu without visa and passport once every year to attend the festival at the St. Anthony's Church, which has followers in both India and Sri Lanka.
3,200 people from mainland Tamil Nadu, Rameshwaram, are going to go to Katchatheevu, but the amount of time that was actually spent is nearly 8 hours, and such is a restriction at this spot.
The waters around the island are constantly monitored by the Sri Lankan Navy. Indian fishermen claim they're often targeted by the Lankan Navy and their trawlers confiscated.
இது எங்களை படகு ஸ்ரீலங்கா அரெஸ்ட் பண்றாங்க படகு சித்திரவதை பண்றாங்க அரெஸ்ட் பண்றாங்க எத்தனோ மீனவர்களை கைது பண்ணிருக்காங்க எத்தனோ படகுகளை கொண்டு சிறைபிடித்து அடைச்சி இதுவரைக்கும் மாநில அரசு மத்திய அரசுங்க எதையுமே ஒண்ணும் பண்ண மாட்டேங்கிறாங்க
30-year-old Kingston was arrested by the Lankan Navy in 2024 for trespassing.
நாங்க அரெஸ்ட் ஆகி 9 நாள் எங்களை ரிலீஸ் பண்ணிட்டு எங்களுக்கு அவதாரம் இலங்கை பணத்துக்கு 50,000 ரூபாய் போட்டிருந்தாங்க. நாங்க கெட்ட முடியாத சூழ்நிலைனால எங்கனால முடிஞ்சனால எல்லாரும் எங்க வீட்டுக்காரங்க எல்லாரும் சேர்ந்து அந்த பணத்தை கெட்டுற ஒரு திங்கக்கிழமை கெட்டுற சூழ்நிலை இருக்கும்போது அந்த சூழ்நிலை அந்த கழிப்பிடத்தை கழுவி சுத்தம் செய்ய சொன்னாங்க இந்த வவுனியா சிறையில.
And we have entered Katchatheevu after a lot of scrutinizing and checking, and this is how Katchatheevu looks. This is the terrain of Katchatheevu inside, but this is just one image because we could see a lot of movement of the armed forces over here. In fact, behind us also you could see the various level of checkpoints you have for various people. Like they have VVIP passes, VIP passes, Indian Sri Lankans and Sri Lankans and Indians, so that way they have been segregated. And even after extreme checking only, you are allowed inside this particular place.
On the island, we found hundreds of devotees who had gathered to attend the church festival. The security checks were strict. India Today asked the Lankan authorities about the complaints made by Indian fishermen.
We are continuing our the border security. I am sure any state would continue their border security, just like the Sri Lanka Navy do. So it is the respect and the adherence to international law, the national law, that we all expect from the users of the sea, the land and the air.
Fishermen claim that all they have to do in Rameshwaram, it's just an island, is that they are dependent on fishing and they have to go to the sea no matter what kind of threat they face. Imagine, they claim that they are not worried about a cyclone, but they are worried about the Sri Lankan army, and they claim that this is a situation they face and that is why they want a solution to it. However, we are here at Katchatheevu. India Today is at Katchatheevu, showing you this beautiful emerald sea behind me. Vidanium, Pramod Madhav, Point Today.
Okay, let's turn from there to something very different. Grok, the AI product from Elon Musk's X, is proving to be rather of a hit among social media platforms' India users. What has attracted attention is Grok's ability to chat in English, and also, many believe, to say some inconvenient truths that are otherwise avoided. Why is Grok becoming so popular as a social media user? Here is a report by our tech team's Cyrus John.
अरे भाई, ऑफिस में काम का प्रेशर, काम जल्दी खत्म कर, फिर थोड़ी मस्ती करते हैं. Okay, this isn't a sympathetic text by a friend of mine, but rather a reply by Grok AI. And AI is telling me to finish work ASAP so that it can have a little masti. And if you go online on X, you will find tons of examples like these where people are speaking with this AI and the AI is replying in a very desi style, even with slang. And Indians are just loving it because they're able to talk to it with, just like everyday language. But how is it doing that? Is there some sort of a desi code that's been embedded into Grok? And why are Indians liking this AI so much?
Grok is an AI chatbot developed by XAI, an Elon Musk venture. The company recently introduced Grok 3, its smartest model as dubbed by Elon Musk. But beyond its conventional problem solving, Indian users have found more entertaining ways of using Grok, like having fun conversations. An ex-user posted a screenshot of Grok replying in Hindi to questions like, "Tu gali de sakti hai?" And this was Grok's response. And there are plenty of examples like these with Grok's desi style. Unhinged demeanor. But how is it mimicking this style? Grok has been trained on large sets of data on the internet. That also includes user posts and comments on X and even WhatsApp forwards from the web. Since Grok 3 is learning by reading what people post, it's able to mimic different personalities and respond as any desi person on the internet would. Just like if you wrote "Meri tabiyat kharab hai" on X, Grok is using that text in real time, learning its meaning and thinking of a reply. So if you're posting anything abusive or offensive, Grok can learn that too. Grok's able to do all this thanks to its adaptive language model that is trained using multiple languages and styles. So there's no desi code at work here, just a very smart AI that's able to analyze a lot of text data and speak this way. Other chatbots like ChatGPT also speak in Hindi, but don't have that flair and desi style of speaking like Grok. Guess that's why a lot of Indians are just loving Grok's replies. Not only that, Grok's unbiased and unhinged approach allows it to address some of the controversial topics. And people do love to talk about controversies, don't they? And Grok doesn't shy away from discussing politics. Grok 3's desi style is showing users a side of AI seen never before. But if AI is speaking this way now, imagine what conversations with machines are going to be like in the future.
So in this particular example, I understand that all of the responses are written by AI, even if the Hindi sounds too good to be written by machine. But that's where the game is changing completely. Machines are getting smarter, which is why we also have to get smarter with them by what we consume online and what we post online as well. So be safe and please use AI responsibly.
With Cyrus John Mudlali, Bureau Report, India Today.
Too much grokking is injurious to your health. Too much social media, in fact, is injurious to all our health. Let me leave you today with our fact check of the day. A video allegedly showing Holi celebrations in China is making the rounds on social media. Now, India Today's fact check team has found that the viral video predates Holi and actually shows Chinese New Year celebrations. I hope you had a safe Holi, and I leave you with that fact check. Thanks for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Good night, Shubhratri, Jai Hind, Namaskar.
You are watching Fact Check segment where we bust fake news. A video allegedly showing Holi celebrations in China is making the rounds on social media. The video shows a long line of firecrackers going off on a street, erupting colors in the air. Several people could be seen looking on from the balconies of their homes as people celebrated on the streets. While many shared it as Indians celebrating Holi in China, some social media users also called it Holi celebrations from Uttar Pradesh and Punjab. Reverse searching keyframes from the viral video led us to the same video shared on an Instagram account named It's China Baby. The Instagram post from 16th February stated that the video showed the 16th day of the first month of the Chinese New Year. It is hereby clear that the video predates Holi, which falls on 14th March this year. India Today Fact Check found that the viral video predates Holi and shows the Chinese New Year celebrations. This fact check on viral fake news is done by India Today's team Afa. This is AI Sana signing off.